Like it's somehow, I have to always negotiate the voice. Yeah, that's tricky. But I guess, well, maybe I could say something that lately I've been doing some work related to trucking, like transport and the system of highways in the United States. So I was looking at this system of highways as a kind of infrastructure related to transportation and how that links certain economies. And so there was a part of me that started to look at the culture of trucking and truckers and truck stops and the kind of whole language of trucking. And so I started to look at songs, started to explore songs that talk about trucking. And this kind of led to a whole collection of songs that not only talk about trucking, but also things about the road, about being on the road, about the lost highway, about getting out of town, about, you know, escaping the city, all these kind of songs, and that really in a way form a kind of mythology of what it means to be on the road and to drive a car or drive a truck. And it was quite amazing to just sort of go through and try to collect these songs, to kind of put together a playlist of songs related to trucking. So there's like, you know, the song Trucking by the Grateful Dead, which is sort of, you know, one example that has kind of been echoing in my mind. Because it's always this kind of relationship between a kind of fantasy about the kind of nomadic trucker who is out on the road with the truck, and sort of in a way is kind of partly, you know, performing a role within society by making a delivery, and at the same time becomes this kind of heroic romantic figure that the trucker is also kind of outside of society, that he's some kind of I don't know, nomadic hero. So I was thinking about these things lately. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, of course, as you know too, I mean, that sound art kind of becomes recognized increasingly and brought into the museum, brought into the gallery. And in a way, I mean, I think that's a very exciting, interesting situation. And of course, I think, you know, it's you know, it's a kind of institutional framework that I think can be very productive. And also, it kind of forces those spaces to refigure themselves slightly, you know. I mean, I guess it does this already a bit with new media art. I mean, how they kind of have to adopt different modes of like collecting works. You know, how do you preserve new media work? How do you present it to a public so they understand where it's coming from? I mean, I think it's a real challenge in a lot of ways, especially because the public generally is used to looking at things. I mean, the Susan Phillips exhibition here is a kind of perfect example where you go in and there's nothing to see, you know. And there's always that tendency for people to just go very quickly, because usually, generally, this sort of visual work, you know, can be engaged with either in a very sort of quick, swift way, and you kind of collect stuff, and at the same time, or you kind of can sit with it for a while and feel like it's still giving you more. But the sound works are often very challenging to a public who's sort of used to working like that. So I don't know, maybe it'll kind of force people to slow down. You know, maybe it's sort of like removing a lot of the usual information. And I don't know really, I mean maybe it also requires the museum or the gallery to take another approach as well. I mean, I think ways to interact more with the public are very interesting, rather than just letting the public wander into the gallery and just hear something. Maybe there's ways in which you can approach the public in a different way by kind of giving them something to hear, or sort of maybe looking more towards their public spaces around the museum. So the sound works can kind of integrate more into the everyday environment, and sort of touch a public in that way. I mean, but of course a lot of sound art also includes sculptural or visual work materials in their projects. So I mean, it's an interesting phenomenon.